Hi, everyone. Dr. Justin Goldston here, coming to you with another interview. This time we are speaking with Andi from Toucan Protocol, one of my favorite protocols. Welcome, Andi. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey everyone, this is Andi from Toucan Protocol, as you introduced me. I'm product lead at Toucan Protocol, so I'm looking into and after everything and anything around meta-registries. So basically the way of tracking carbon across its life cycle, and also around all the product aspects that we have to bring carbon on chain, which is what we call bridges. That's basically tokenizing assets, namely carbon credits at this point in time, and bringing it into the meta-registry, and then later handing it over to our other departments that are looking into giving carbon credits more utility on chain, which is financial products, commodification, and utility beyond the retirement of carbon, because that is our hypothesis that with more of these utility aspects around carbon tokens, which is unique to the blockchain and Web3 and what Web3 can do with carbon. Our hypothesis is that this is basically what's what will be driving a huge wave of demand, and what will become a sink for carbon credits, which ultimately obviously creates demand for new projects and new mitigation action. And this is all what we want to do.
Excellent. Thanks for that. So in my initial research within this space, going back a while back, this whole meta registry, topic came up. Can you define that for non-natives? I think that would be good.
Yeah. So today what we have is we have a bunch of registries and standard programs. Normally it goes like this: every standard program. So basically a group of scientists or experts who define what is a good carbon crediting project, and who also do the QA, or basically define the guardrails for the QA into this. They also run a registry system, a ledger of carbon credits. So basically, when are they being issued? Who are they being issued to? Who are they being transferred to? And who are they being retired by? And with what kind of additional metadata and information all of these transactions happen. So one of the things that we have, obviously from this aspect, is that when we do all of this in silos, and when we're trying to do tackle a global project and a global problem with many projects, we get really quickly into interoperability issues and into things like double counting, meaning like you count the same emission reduction or emission, if you will, you count it twice, or you spend it twice, which would be double use, because you have systems that don't talk to each other, for example, or you have the same projects in two systems, or you move one project from one system to another and you lose a lot of data in between. So this is a big issue on a intergovernmental level, but this is also a big issue on the private sector level, which is the voluntary carbon market, because none of these carbon crediting standards are, have an overseeing body that is regulating all of that. We do that in the VCM, so the voluntary carbon market, in a self-regulatory and pseudo-regulatory way, and yet we still our systems are still not connected to each other. So we have a lot of friction there. We lose transparency along the way. It's very costly to then retroactively establish transparency. So looking in, doing due diligence, doing audits on where something moved from, or is this the only registry that has this project, for example? Can I safely spend the credits? Can I rest assured for that? So we spend a lot of money and time on that. So an ideal scenario is, of course, a a tooling that would combine all of these and that would build bridges between these silos. And what better infrastructure has there ever been than a system that can be run completely trustless and doesn't require any private entity, any administrator, anyone who could do human error or could go rogue or could go out of business and lose all records. What better system did we ever have than at this point in time, where we have public blockchains which can take all of this information and are practically built for this, because every transaction has embedded value into it. So, and that is exactly what transacting carbon credits is. You transact value. And so these systems are made for it. And our purpose as a meta-registry is that we provide a way of having a ledger system that can serve all these purposes that normally a centralized entity would do, which is we combine all of this, we keep track at one place, basically conceptually in one place, but with all the benefits of a decentralized system, which is if we go out of business, it doesn't matter, right? So we have no way of spending or erasing the history of a credit, or spending a credit twice, or help anyone, or no matter how many trillions of dollars you put onto this ledger, we cannot. It's the safest it can get at this point, and that is why we believe, and increasingly many thankfully do so, that we need a registry of registries, basically, so a meta registry, where carbon assets can be tracked, can live basically through all of their life cycle.
Excellent. So with this, so yeah, you mentioned a number of or a few challenges. You know, outside of the challenges that you already mentioned, what other challenges do you see with this type of climate finance adoption within this space? You know, from the current Web3 space, and then in order to get these traditional Web2 companies to come over to Web3 and try to utilize this tool.
I think one of the main friction points here is the guilt by affiliation, in a sense that there's a lot of prejudice against what Web3 is and what's happening inside of Web3, and there's a lot of focus on like a very minor fraction of the actual energy that's being put into this, in a sense of that is actual scams, or that is actually a net negative for the planet, and it's being portrayed onto a system that is trying to solve something completely different with what is a perfectly neutral infrastructure and perfectly neutral technology. And I think there's a lot of educational effort to be made, and also regulatory clarity to be given, so that people are, and by people I mean companies mostly, are not afraid of that this is the devil that they should not be touching with a stick. It's a technology, and ideally, and I think that's something that we as Web3 need to nail much better than we currently do. Ideally, we understand that all of this is running under the hood, and we need to portray it in a way, and we need to also enable UX in a way that it looks like you don't even know that it's all of this is running a blockchain. You don't have to care. You can operate as you operated always. With just at a lower cost level, or at a higher frequency, and at a easier auditability. So your auditor will be very happy with that. But you as an investor in a climate mitigation project, you might not even have to care, and you should not care. And I think that is where we need to go. And there's many cool projects that that try these and building on ramps and off ramps and automation, etc. So that people don't even have to interact with anything that feels like Web3 or feels complicated, or setting up MetaMask wallets and stuff like that. But we're still early. We're still, on the going west trip currently. So we're the early pioneers, and we're learning every day on how to make it, more acceptable for the broader masses. And we also need a little bit of, reaching out your hand from the broader masses, or from the representative of that, which is regulators maybe. And in all of that, that handshake will inevitably happen, and we all will prosper from that a lot. But I think it will be happening quicker the less prejudice we have in between, and the less FUD that is in between. So any kind of educational material such as this is super highly welcome, and I think is super important in the adoption.
Yeah, that's one thing that Drew said that's important as well. Drew from KlimaDAO, he said they're working with a number of organizations to build the tooling so they don't even know it's blockchain, right? So also another thing is they're actually doing a lot of education within industry. So do you all find you all are doing the education, or is it mostly the community that's educating people on what Toucan does? How is that working within your ecosystem?
It's both. It's people who hold the customer relationships, because we don't sell credits or produce them, or ideally interact with them on the outskirts of or on the extreme points of the life cycle. But there's marketplaces and intermediaries and consultants for project developers, or project developers themselves who educate other project developers. So we rely on those, of course, and it's the only scalable way of doing that. But at the same time, we do know that we have an educational, a task, a quest of doing that. And so we do that. We create lots of content on different aspects. We try to join every working groups of the from the conventional market, in order to educate players that are sitting at these extreme points. For example, standard bodies. So we spend a lot of energy and a lot of time, for example, on formulating what we think is important input for their consultation pieces. So the last summer will be going down in my memory as the consultation summer, because practically every standard body issued their own consultations with overlapping but also specific questions to their situation, and we try to answer all of them, and we try to be as collaborative as possible, and work and extend a hand, and even bend a little bit away from our way, what we want to do, in ways that are more easily to understand or easily to grasp for the incumbent players. So in order to make this more, to create a pathway how information can flow, because I think one of the worst thing that anyone and everyone in the space can do on either side, and I even hate the idea of their sides about this, but if you think about Web 2 and Web 3, the worst thing we can do is being elitist, and that is either being like, hey, we have always done it like that, and who the fuck are you guys? And on the same way, the other way around, like, hey, we're Web3, like we are, the old ways are all dumb and all corrupt, and it's all run by banks and it's not working. None of this is helpful. So I think the best thing we can all do is doing what we all do best. So if you're good at content, you create content. We have a bunch of people also internally in Toucan who do that, and we create a lot of those contents. We collaborate, and I would ask the community, and I always do, to do their missionary purpose on this as well. And I think we're making headway with this. It's being from a standpoint where we had standoff really between players. We're getting much closer with everyone involved, both the demand and the supply side, with intermediaries and with standarding programs and with lobby groups and with interest groups, etc. All of them are, trying to understand each other better, and all of them are trying to educate each other. So that's really good.
Excellent, excellent. So given that your particular model, what protocols are you currently on, and then in your opinion, how important is the interoperability between different protocols and different ecosystems for this type of solution?
Yeah,
I'm trying to envision how this meta registry works from a interoperability perspective. Like, is there like a roll up? Like, how does that work?
all right. So question number one, what's the networks we're currently on? So we are on Polygon and Celo, and are looking out for other chains as well. So we believe that the protocol should be on all chains, or basically on all chains that are interested and also interesting in sense of an ecosystem that can benefit from this. So there's no point in being on chains, and it's no point for chains that they have a utility like a carbon crediting or a carbon credit registry and bridges to carbon crediting systems if there is no one using that. So one of the things that is important to us is that there's an ecosystem, a thriving ecosystem of demand and where these kind of assets can create utility for people, being it for financial primitives and the what's called refi use cases, but it's also in a sense where people, for example, have exposition and are very well underway in this building a bridge to the and I know that I'm stretching this metaphor a lot today. We're basically building a bridge to the Web2 sphere of things, and where corporates, for example, feel at home. I think this is also a very valuable place to be. And so what do we think about interoperability? We think it's key for this, because we also don't think that there's one ecosystem to rule them all. Much like there's not one standarding program to rule them all, much like there's not one methodology to rule them all, much like there's not, carbon removal will take care of everything. It's a, portfolio of solutions. Like, we have a portfolio of problems we're trying to solve here, so we need to have a portfolio of solutions. And for that, interoperability is one piece. And so because it's unlocking just different ecosystems, basically, is the hypothesis here. And so how does it work as a meta-registry? A meta-registry needs to function meta, so aggregating in a form for different input factors like standard programs, but it also needs to be meta in a form of it needs to be valid on different chains and different ecosystems. And the whole idea of, if you remember in the beginning, I said stuff about not double use credits or not double count things. This has to be true and has to be proliferated into this task of creating interoperability, because it would be a horrible scenario if you go from one chain to another chain and you basically double the carbon credits there. Or you spend a carbon credit and you don't track it in this, and you enable double spend. So that is one very, very crucial aspect that needs to be taken care of, and that is taken care of every time that we go to another chain. That we make sure that value can flow between systems, but will stay unique. And that there's only basically one carbon credit in a token reflecting 1 ton sequestered from the atmosphere at any given time, and not several ones.
Excellent. So So you mentioned the whole refi thing. I think we mentioned it a few times already. So in your definition, is it refi or is it climate finance? You know, because in your words.
Yeah, I think refi to me is conceptually baking climate finance into finance. So baking climate mitigation and enabling the regeneration of the planet by baking it as financial primitives into how we do business, how we transact value today. And so ideally the ultimate outcome of refi is that every time you transact one currency or value, you heal the planet a little bit. And now there's a bunch of things how you could do that, and carbon markets play a core role in this because they are the most advanced, the biggest tool that we came up as humans today. Was employing the power of markets into climate finance, and not make it a philanthropic thing or we rely on governments only thing, because we saw that this is going nowhere fast enough, and that it's just taking too much time, and politics are getting in the way of survival here. So there was created a private system, and the concept, like I said, the concept of refi is to take this system and fuel it with what we do anyway, by transacting money, by wanting to make profit, by wanting to grow, by creating utility, by creating financial freedom, for example. And what better way would there be, banking the unbanked, creating financial freedom for the rest of the world, for people who don't have it yet, and at the same time hook everyone up to this other system that is basically empowering regeneration. So yeah, it is climate finance, but I think it's powering climate finance by, again, it's the theme is recurring, putting it under the hood. Ideally, you don't know about that. You don't know that you participate in refi. You don't think about that. You come and you want to borrow money. Great, go to this place where you can borrow against, you can hold a carbon asset, for example, and borrow against that. Why not that rather than holding cash? Why not finance climate mitigation first, basically, and hold an appreciating asset and borrow against that? So this is, an example of how you how you take climate finance and put it into financial primitives that we all use and need to use and want to use every day.
Mm-hmm. So given these, because I'm on board with you, I love what you all are doing, but based on what you see, based on the conversations that you have in the industry, how far out are we into mass adoption for this? In your opinion?
I think we're not as far away comparatively as the blockchain space itself. So it's a little bit of a conundrum. So it's younger than Web3 in total. It's younger than decentralized finance, but it's less dependent on recreating financial flow, on unbanking banks, for example, or on stuff like that. We're much closer, and it's much easier for us to adopt because we are replacing a system that needed to be, or needs to be, and wants to be also replaced. And people are not many parts of the market are not fighting back against this, are not fighting back against technology, the blockchain technology, and see the tremendous value that, especially around transparency and immutability, and no human error can take place in this. What needs to be a high scale, always available, and high security ledger system. There's a lot of trust into that already from market sides. So the adoption part that we need to have, and the mass adoption part, I think is something that is via what you also discussed before, and withdrew from KlimaDAO. And what I mentioned earlier also, via the idea of putting all of this under the hood and having a usability layer on top of that takes care of fears and complexity and etc. I think it's easier for us to do that in the climate space and in the climate finance space than to do that, for example, in mass financing products and replacing banks for your everyday person's saving and checking account, or how you want to get your salary being paid in crypto or whatever, some stuff like this. I think this is much more complex and complicated and has many more barriers than where we are currently operating, which is why all of this is, and it's often called the killer use case, which is a bit maybe poor wording, but it's a fantastic use case for blockchain, because the value is intrinsic. We don't have to come up with currencies and tell you that you need to trust me, that there's definitely value in my protocol. You can see it. It's there. You understand it because people pay for the asset already. And at the same time, there is a little bit of an educational effort to be done, but I think there can be a huge unlock, for example, when major players in the industry, for example, standard bodies, start officially endorsing this, or when major demand side players unlock the gates by buying into this and trusting this. I think that will have a ripple effect, and that will be tremendous, and it will be easier because the market itself currently, it's a $2 billion market, VCM. So it's very easy to comparatively easy to bring that on chain, for example, and requires not that much capital as other markets would, for example, require if you want to bring the whole real estate space onto blockchains. That would be a much bigger endeavor. So I think we are at a point where many interesting things come together. Market is still small, sadly, but that's the truth. VCM is still too small. We need to grow it, but we are at a place where this means we have people and we have counterparts that are centralized enough to talk to them in a custom fashion and convey the story uniquely so that people can understand it, and so that we can take fears as everyone has them and we can address them individually. So we don't have to run around with thousands of companies or thousands of standard bodies or thousands of centers or hundreds of regional governments or something like this. There's only a few for us comparatively to convince. And so I think that plus the intrinsic value of Web3 for this is an awesome singularity that we should capitalize on. And I think one of the big barriers that's still in between all of that is, like I said, the missing educational piece, or in conjunction with that, the fear around what could all go wrong. But yeah, I think that's something. To me, it seems like this is a problem that can be tackled.
Yeah, and you said something that I hadn't even thought of yet, where with this, you're actually solving a true real life problem. Where in the past, in a lot of use cases in blockchain, we were creating solutions. Yes, the solutions work, but we really weren't solving the problem. Right. So exactly. if we can educate the people that, yes, we are solving a real world problem, then I think that, that's one way that we can get people in. And also it's very interesting where you point out that it's going to be easy to bring a whole entire, sector on chain. right? I think it'd be impossible to bring in real estate industry on chain, in my opinion. But like you said, it's so centralized, it's so small that you can bring it on chain. That's another interesting concept that you can bring to the industry, to these standardized bodies, where I think you're going to get this Web2 adoption within this space. So that's pretty much all I had. We went a little long, so I apologize for that. But how can people find you, and do you have any calls to action for people who view this?
Absolutely. So you can find us on toucan.earth. You find all of our socials there and information. I think we're on every social channel that you most likely want to be on also. And you will find us there also as Toucan Protocol. Join our Discord. We do have a very nice Discord conversation going on. And you can ask any questions there, reach out to us on any of the socials, and you can it leads to getting interviews the next day if you do that. So we're all there to answer any questions. And my call to action is that get familiar with all of this. Like if you are a Web2 person working in the space, interested in that, read up on this, ask questions. We're like, the whole community is super, like it's a game changer if you change from a Web2 ecosystem into a Web3 ecosystem, and you see how helpful people are, how there's no dumb questions, how anything and everything you want to ask can be asked and will be answered. Sometimes with memes, but in 90% of the times you will get a proper answer. And go about this. There's no fear. You don't have to have any fear about this, and reach out. And my call to action to any Web3 crowd watching or that is being is being involved in this, is we don't want to be any kind of elitists. Like we need some humble. There has been a market that has been built for decades, and it's working. No matter what we think about it, it's working. It's creating mitigation action, and I think all of us, our purpose is to not increase the divide, but actually take it away. And for that, I think we need to respect and meet people where they are meant to be, and help them make the transition to what we all know already is the generational technology. It's our internet, basically our internet moment, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, but also nothing to be elitist or proud of, in a sense that this is all for us all together.
Andi, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And you gave me a lot to further research further. And best of luck to you and Toucan.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. See you, everyone.